at using quadratics to solve, rationalizing radicals to solve. And we're going to look at just a couple of these um, as well as looking at some Pythagorean theorem. So if you have a square root on the bottom, you just multiply whatever that number is on the top and the bottom, because you cannot have a square root on the bottom. It's like against math rules. So we end up with 5 square root 7 over 7 times 7 is 49. And the square root of 49 is 7. So whatever on the bottom, you just multiply it on the top. So here we're going to multiply square root 3x over square root 3x. 3 times 2 gives me 6, so we get square root 6x. And then 3 times 3 is 9. Square root of 9 is 3. X times x is x squared. That gives me 3x. We can do it for number 1 as well. We're going to square root 3 times the top, square root 3 times the bottom, and we get the square root of 3 over 3 times 3 is 9. Square root of 9 is 3. Number 2 here. This is the last one I'm doing. We square root x on the bottom. We do square root x on the top. And we get the square root of 4x over x. Okay, let's do some Pythagorean theorem where we're going to have to use these square roots for things. So we're going to look at number 13. B is 5, C is 9. Now we know that for the quadratic formula is A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So we're going to use this formula, squared. There we go. So we're going to find A. We don't know what A is. We have A squared plus, we're going to have 5 instead of B squared equals 9 instead of C, but also squared. Okay, so we've got A, we've got A squared plus 25 equals 81. If we do, this doesn't need to be in there. If we do 81 minus 25, we get 56. So we're going to get A squared equals 56, because I subtracted 25 from both sides. Now we need to simplify that. We need to get what A equals. Well, A equals the square root, and I'm just going to use SQR for square root, 56. What two numbers multiply to give us 56, where one is a perfect square? So if we look, if we try doing some of our perfect squares in there, we know 25 isn't going to go in there evenly, so maybe 16. It doesn't go in there evenly, so maybe 9. And if 9 doesn't go in there evenly, maybe 4. 4 and 14. So we end up with here A equals the square root of 4 is 2. So we go 2 square root 14 is what we end up with. Let's try another one. We're going to have, let's move this up a little bit, A squared plus 8 squared equals 12 squared. So that ends up giving us A squared plus 64 equals 144. And then we're simply going to subtract 64 from both sides. So 144 minus 64 gives us 80. So we end up with a squared equals 80. Then we're going to take the square root of both sides. So we get a equals the square root of 80. And then what two numbers multiply to give us 80 where one is the perfect square? So, I know some of you is like your first instinct is to divide it by 10 or 8. Neither of those are a perfect square. Try dividing it by a perfect square. So like 25 doesn't go in there evenly. Okay, so what about 16? Oh, 16 goes in there evenly. So we know the square root is, we end up with here, a equals square root of 16 times 5. So then we get a equals 4 square root 5. And that's our final answer. Okay, let's do 15. I've got 15 squared plus b squared equals 25 squared. So I can't do it on the top of my head, so I have to use a calculator and do 15 squared equals 225. So we've got 225 plus b, no, we've got 225 plus b squared equals 25 squared, which gives us 625. Now we're going to take away 225 from both sides, because that's how you get b squared alone, and we get b squared equals 400. Okay, luckily this is a perfect square, so we just simply square root both sides and we get b equals 20. And we're done. We don't have to simplify that one at all. So sometimes it does work out like that. We're going to skip to number 17. This one we've got 11 squared plus 22 squared equals c squared. So we get 121 plus 484 equals c squared. We add those together. We don't subtract this time because they're on the same side of the equal sign. And we get 605 equals c squared. Okay, we have to find something that goes in here evenly. 100 won't go in there evenly. So I don't think 81 will, but we can always try it. Nope. So we've got 605, divided that by, how about 64? I don't think so because they're not both multiples of 5. So we've got 605 divided by 25. Nope. 605. I don't think it'll work. Divided by 16. Nope. 605 divided by 9. Nope. 605 divided by 4. Nope. So I think we just are going to say that c squared, or c equals the square root of 605. and leave it at that. Okay, so that's how to do this with simplifying square roots.